A Zimbabwean man has died after he and other opposition party supporters were ambushed by suspected supporters of the country's ruling party on their way to a campaign rally west of the capital, Harare, stoking fears of growing violence 3 weeks before the elections. In a video footage posted on social media showed unidentified men throwing stones at opposition supporters and a man wearing a yellow shirt lying on the ground. Police said they have arrested 10 people in connection with this latest incident. Now let's get more reaction and analysis on this. We're now joined by Dr. Vusumuzi Sibanda, African Diaspora Global Network CEO there. Thank you so much for your time. Less than 3 weeks to go before the elections. You know, violence and intimidation incidents have already been reported against supporters of Zanu-PF. How free do you think these elections will be?
Good afternoon. Unfortunately, I think we need to even look at the fact that well before the date was, before August, there were a lot of, incidents of violence where we saw, SABC or opposition party, members that were gathering, being beaten. People as old as over 60 or 70 being beaten by young people. So when we talk about the freeness and fairness of the election, when we have seen, such violence for a long period of time leading, to the elections, we've seen and heard about, a group called FAS, Friends of Zimbabwe, that has also been going out and interfering, with opposition party, rallies. So the latest incident is only, an example of many such incidents that are taking place. And that on its own, can only tell us that, up to the time when elections are going to take place. And of course, this does not come as a shock. We did hear the president of Zimbabwe saying there should be no violence, but on the same note, we had him addressing, congregants of the Apostolic Faith Mission, telling people that they occasionally go crazy, so they must come to the church so that they can be prayed for to cool them down a little bit, because they actually thrash people. That is a tone that is not expected of a president who is actually leading a violence-free campaign.
And it's also just the level of violence that we are seeing. One person was killed through stoning, just that level of violence. To what extent, will the peace pact, which was signed over the weekend by several opposition parties, including, in fact, President the Zanu-PF, which call for non-violence and peace, before these elections and during these elections, to what extent will this help curb, the violence that we are seeing?
It never does, because if it did, we would have seen that, Zanu-PF is committed, to peaceful elections by ensuring that, one, it arrests those members that are ever found, perpetrating or perpetuating violence. But this is not happening because apart from, the killed member of the SABC, there was an attack. Windows smashed and vehicles stormed, the convoy of the SABC, President Chamisa. So what we are seeing happening, and unfortunately, what actually is said and these peace pacts that are signed are only meant for PR purposes, but the undertone is obviously that people should be thrashed. To use the words that were used, by the president. So these peace pacts and these statements that are issued by President Mnangagwa, including where he said the opposition must be allowed to campaign freely, they are only mere PR stunts, just like the election itself is really a PR stunt just to sanitize, an otherwise unlawful and unfree election.
What role then does the SADC play, especially if it will then be made to, in actual fact, declare, this election as free and fair? What role do they have to play now, particularly because we know that these acts of violence are not new to the run-up to the elections?
SADC has been very unfair, and SADC has actually let down, heavily the people of Zimbabwe, not only SADC, the AU and other, observers, including South Africa as a country that has gone there and often, declared that the elections were free, fair and credible, when in fact there is so much, and they had so much information, including the last election, where 6 people were killed. You would be told that, the time period leading to the elections and the elections themselves was free, fair, and credible, when in fact there would have been so much violence, intimidation, buying of votes, people being, beaten and thrashed. So SADC is a serious letdown to the people of Zimbabwe. It has been for the last particularly 23 years, where starting from the year 2000, where the elections have been heavily contested between ZANU-PF and the opposition MDC, now CCC, where people have been killed in large numbers, and SADC has always kept, the stance that the elections, were free and fair.
Let's talk now about what's at stake, with these coming elections. We know that there are 11 candidates vying for the presidency, but the key contenders are between the incumbent President Mnangagwa as well as the CCC's Chamisa. Obviously, the CCC is hoping that growing frustration over ZANU-PF's mishandling of the economy will somehow tilt the scale. What are your thoughts?
Well, look, frankly speaking, I think that, the people of Zimbabwe have always voted against ZANU-PF, and it is expected, I think, on the same line that, the same thing is going to happen. We know what happened in 2008, when elections took a month to be, the results to be declared. And we know what also happened in 2018, when elections took forever to be declared until people became restless. So we are very much aware of the fact that, the likelihood that anyone, a good number of the Zimbabweans will vote ZANU-PF is very, very slim. A lot of people are very unhappy, and they are sick and tired of ZANU-PF and the economic mismanagement, including what we have seen in the gold mafia videos, where nothing, documentaries, where nothing basically has happened to those people that have actually been, flighted, in that documentary. So we know for a surety that if the people of Zimbabwe would probably be given a donkey to vote for other than ZANU-PF, the chances are they would vote for a stone or a donkey other than ZANU-PF because of its mismanagement. But we know, again, as a reality, that the results will be declared and ZANU-PF is going to be a winner, because there is no way that ZANU-PF will be declared a loser, for the very same reason that the current government of Zimbabwe, which is what a lot of people are not talking about, the big elephant in the room, is that that government is a government that is illegitimate, came in through a coup in 2017, and it cannot afford to lose an election, because they are very aware of the repercussions of losing an election and the likelihood that they would then have to be taken to task for the coup that took place and the parties and army that exactly took that performed that coup.